Well, hey, Vision. All right, it's good to see you today. If you missed it with the big snowstorm and everything that happened on Sunday, we were in here a day early last weekend on Saturday night, primarily because we had baptism planned. We said we're not going to miss it. We're going to do it. We even had family coming in from out of town, and we came in here last Saturday night, baptized 5 people, which next month, when we celebrate our 4-year anniversary, that will mean that we have baptized 125 people at our church. It's amazing. Let's give God a hand for that. Serious. It is so cool to see God working in people's lives and for them literally coming out saying, I'm living for Jesus. I want to be a tool for God. I want to be a light shining for God. That's what baptism is. Now, before we jump into today's message, I want to tell you about another way that Vision is shining out into our community. And it's called Project Give It Away. This is our end of year giving project, and we're kind of like I call it like a pipe that water runs through, that anything you give to this project, it runs right through us. We don't keep any of it. That's what this project's about. We're going to give it away. What we did is we created a team with 7 people on it, kid, teenager, some adults, put this team together, and they were up here 2 weeks ago talking about it. I want to give you a quick review so that you know kind of what it's about, what you're giving towards. There's 7 different local charities. First one is Habitat for Humanity. Anybody been involved in a Habitat project before? I have. It is really cool to get on site to build a house. The reality is, we're not a big enough church to build a house, but what we can do is we're getting to know 2 families that are getting ready to move into houses, and one of them is this lady, Sandy, right here. And what we're going to do is as we get to know her and find out specific needs she has moving into that home, and we're going to bless her like that. Because with Habitat, they help people who maybe otherwise couldn't get a home, and then they move in, and actually what they pay for the home goes right back into Habitat to help others build homes. So we're partnering with Habitat. The second one is Cancer Services of Gaston County. If you heard 2 weeks ago, Scott, our team leader, and Austin Kepley, one of our teenagers, both were pediatric cancer survivors. They both went through cancer at a young age. So we have a passion not just even to send money to the big organization, but to meet a couple people locally that we can bless and help them as they go through their situation with cancer. The third group we're going to help is Catherine's House. I love this group here in Gaston County that helps moms and their kids that are moving out of homelessness and truly trying to get jobs and trying to find a place to live. And so we're going to partner with Catherine's to make that happen in the lives of women and kids in our community. The next one is On Eagle's Wings, which is about sex trafficking. And this group takes teenage girls, really, and young adults that are coming out of sex trafficking, and they help them to, first of all, break free from that and to get education, to get jobs, and to get placed in a spot where they can actually move past that. And if you say, well, sex trafficking, man, that doesn't really affect us around here. Well, actually, North Carolina is in the top 10 in all states in the United States that are dealing with sex trafficking, and Charlotte is the main hub in the Carolinas. So yes, this is right here in our backyard. We're going to help this group right here. All right, the next one is Gaston Hospice. Has anybody here ever been impacted by Gaston Hospice? I was over there just a couple months ago, actually with one of our visionaries, as her husband got into the late stages of his life, and he passed. And I love that hospice. What they do is they help families and people that are in that situation where maybe the hospital isn't the best fit, and home, you can't really meet the needs anymore, but they still want to be with their loved one as they get into those last couple days, literally, of life. And up in Dallas at Robin Johnson House, that's what they do. So we want to bless them, and also we want to get to know some families personally and bless them if they have financial needs that we can help them with during that time of tragedy. Right, next up, Least of these Carolinas. Certainly at Vision, we have a heart for kids, and especially for kids that are orphans or in the foster care system. We have a family in our church, Ashley Shonda, who is playing keys for us today, that they have helped out literally dozens of kids this year personally. Well, we want to get in and help out kids and give them some resources in terms of their backpack and some of their stuff they take from home to home. We want to pour into the lives of these kids to let them know that what the Bible says about helping widows and orphans, we actually do it. That's what we do here. And then the last group we're going to help is Operation Heal Our Patriots. If you've heard of Samaritan's Purse, we just got done with a project for them called Operation Christmas Child, where we sent hundreds of boxes of toys and love to Charlotte to go around the world. Well, they also have a branch of their organization that helps men and women who've been in the military and come back, and honestly, they're a little bit broken, and they need some help readjusting to society. Maybe them and their spouse, their family need some counseling, need some help moving forward. That's what this group does, and we're going to help them help those families. So let me be real clear. When you give an end-of-year gift, whether it's in the offering or you go online and you hit the specific drop-down of Project Give It Away, we are keeping none of that. It's so far, it has in that account has close to $3,000 because of your giving so far. And over the last 2 weeks of December, if you give to that account, then this team will meet the first Wednesday in January to say, here's how much there was, and here's how we're going to divide it up. And they're going to go to those different places and give them out personally to bless them in Jesus' name. So if you want to do that with us, please be a part of giving it away and sacrificing for them this year. Now today, as we talk about encounters, it's the same thing. That when we encounter God, it changes us. And today we're hitting week 3, so if you got your takeaway card, pull it out, because this topic today, it affects us all. Because we all have times in our life where we get into some sort of a dilemma because of our resources, whether it is a shortage of money, a shortage of time, a shortage of, honestly, emotional stability, maybe a shortage of courage. We get in a spot where we say, God, I don't have what it takes to get through this. I'm in a challenge that is bigger than me. God, I can't do it. And God says, actually, you can't do it without me. But with me, you can do amazing things. And today we look at the Bible. This guy, his name is Gideon. He's way back in the Old Testament. And he faced a situation where he did not have the resources he needed to make it through the challenge he was in. And so maybe that's you, and you're saying, well, yeah, Pastor Matt, I'm in a spot. I want to change careers, but I don't have the courage, or I don't have the time, or the mental space to go back to school. Or at my job, I need to have courage to have this conversation. In this relationship, I need to do this. And God, I don't have the resources mentally, or I don't have the money to do what I need to do, or the time. God, can you help me with that? Today he's saying, yes, I will help you like I helped Gideon. So let's take a look at it. Part 3, the resource dilemma. So our bottom line, where we start off today, is that when we encounter God, we can overcome any resource dilemma. So repeat after me. When we encounter God, we can overcome any resource dilemma. Hopefully the next couple minutes you get to a spot where you believe that even more and more. So when you walk out today and you say, actually, maybe I can face that now. Maybe I can do this now, because Gideon, the guy in the story, oh man, he had lots of doubts. Lots of doubts. He said, God, I don't know if you can do that. I don't think you can do that. Maybe you can do that, but not for me, God. Listen to his story. Track along in your takeaway card, because as he goes through this journey, I think you'll see some similarities to your journey. Now, the story of Gideon, it follows this guy Joshua. And if you were here earlier this fall, we went through a series called Fear Factor. And it went through the book of Joshua and talked about the battles he won, the things he went through. And as that ended, the Israelites were in a pretty good spot. Well, they've gone from there and gone through some judges now that were their leaders. And as we pick this up in the book of Judges, Gideon is now the guy that is with the Israelites and is fearful. And he literally is in a spot where he's saying, God, we are in a mess. We're in a bind. And we see in the lives of the Israelites, which are very similar to me and probably to you, is you have times where sometimes you're on this high with God, and sometimes you're in the ditch, and sometimes you're good, and sometimes you haven't talked to him, and you go up and down, and God says, this is what happened here. And we can learn from this. We can grow from this. In the first 5 chapters of Judges, we see the Israelites, they're falling into this pattern of stepping away from God and doing evil, as it was called. You say, I can't do evil. Well, actually, we can. When we get out of God's best, we're doing evil, and God says, come on back. Come on back. Let's get you on track. And the Israelites did. Well, they get to chapter 6, and they're in this bind where these guys called the Midianites are oppressing them. And that's really your first blank. You see that Gideon, he's in this resource dilemma where he's literally hiding in this like underground space, and he's working through some of the food to try to prepare it. He's like looking around like, okay, hope the people that are oppressing us don't see us. He says, man, I wish I could do something about this. I don't want to live like this anymore, but I don't feel like I have what it takes to get past this. I mean, does that sound like our story a lot? Yes, it does. He faces this dilemma. He probably wanted to fix it. Didn't have what it took. Let's see what happens. Well, verse 12 says, when the angel of the Lord, and yes, God sent his angel to talk to Gideon, says, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. So say mighty. Mighty. Say warrior. Warrior. You're like, man, that's a pretty cool way to be known. So I wish I was a mighty warrior. And actually, in that moment, Gideon in the same way, he's like, man, you're saying that, but I don't feel like a mighty warrior. And if you're like me, when you get in this dilemma, this troubled time, you don't feel mighty at all, and you sure don't feel like a warrior. And that's how Gideon was. So God injects this vision into him, saying, Gideon, I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. You are, when you walk with me, a mighty warrior. Well, Gideon says, well, pardon me, my Lord, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? I mean, is this not our story? We're like, God, if you're with me, then why has this happened? Why do we not have enough money to pay to get the car fixed? Why do we not have enough time to spend with my kids, to spend doing what I want to do, to try to relax, to try to get some emotional stability? God, why is this happening? God says, well, hang on. Gideon says, where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now, oh, look at this. The Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of the Midianites. If we're being real, we have times in our prayer we say, God, I don't know where you're at, but it sure doesn't feel like you're here. Why have you abandoned me in my worst time, my toughest time, God? Where are you at? That's where Gideon was. So we see that Gideon doubts. So say, Gideon doubts. Because the reality is, this is going to be the pattern that we follow Gideon through in his story. So I want you to be encouraged that if you're coming in today saying, well, man, I'd love to see God do something amazing in my dilemma and my situation, but I just doubt all the time. Well, so did Gideon. Let's see how he figured it out. Verse 14, the Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hands. Am I not sending you? We see that God challenges him. You know, God's got this relationship with us where he challenges us and encourages us. He challenges us and encourages us. And in this moment, when he looks at him and says, you're a mighty warrior, and Gideon says, I don't know. God says, I've chosen you. You can do this thing. Well, verse 15, Gideon says, oh, pardon me, my Lord, but how can I wonder if there's some wine in this. He's like, how can I save Israel? My clan, oh God, it's the weakest. It's the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family. I mean, doesn't it sound like us when we pray? The next line again is Gideon doubts. It's us in our prayers like, God, really? Where have you been? Why aren't you with me? I'm not a mighty warrior. I can't do this. I wonder sometimes why God doesn't just shake his head and say, I'm going to somebody else. No, God sticks with us. He sticks with us. In verse 16, he says, I will be with you, and yes, you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. God promises to be with him. He promises. If you remember this, earlier in the year, I gave you this 8.5 by 11 sheet of all the references, of all the promises God put in the Bible for you. Those promises have not changed when you're in your dilemma. God says, I got promises for you. You can be a mighty warrior and make it through this. Well, things get kind of strange now. Because Gideon, he asked for a sign. And it's interesting because in the Bible, there's different times God gives signs, and there's other times that God says, you have little faith, why did you doubt? So what it shows me is that God is not a system. So if you're looking at this saying, God, I want a sign like Gideon got. I want you just to show up and show me something, tell me something. Has anybody here ever prayed for God to give you a sign? I have. I'm like, God, give me a sign. Date her or not, take that job or not, go that place or not, give me a sign. Well, in this instance, God does something cool. And this week, I want you to read through chapters 6 through 8. There's a whole story in this, but in a nutshell, God does something cool with fire and pow, 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 and Gideon's like, wow, God, you gave me a sign, like you're here. You're doing this. So Gideon, he actually takes some steps forward in courage. What he does is he goes and he tears down some of these altars and he knocks down some of these poles and he basically saying, God, I trust you, but, look at verse 27. So Gideon, he took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. So we see he's moving in the right direction, but he's scared. So don't get down on yourself if you get in a spot where you take a little faith step, but you're scared. It's okay. God's still walking with you on that. And then we see as this whole thing goes down with the Baal worshipers and this fight going on ensuing, and Gideon's trying to take some steps forward in this, but he's scared. Well, verse 34 says, the Spirit of the Lord came on Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. Man, that's a weird name. Well, these guys, you're saying, who are they? Those are his people. Remember, he said, I'm in a weak group of people. I'm not surrounded by a bunch of big, strong, brilliant people. This is all I've got. Well, he inspires other people, even with his little faith steps. He inspires them because we see the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. And understand, if you are a follower of Jesus, then you have access to his Spirit. Literally, God's Spirit can live inside of you and give you strength and power that you could not manufacture on your own. And yet Gideon, he still kind of struggles. He says, God, oh man, would you do another sign? Would you show me something else? And I love that God he doesn't just kind of like, just blink him away and say, your faith is so pitiful. God comes down to him and says, okay, I'll do another sign. And this is a weird one. You can read about it in entirety in here. But basically, he takes his fleece, puts it down on the ground and says, God, tomorrow, if it's wet and the ground's dry, then I know you're working. And he gets up, and it did. And he's like, okay, will you show me one more thing? And God's like, what? One more thing? And he says, okay, the fleece, if it's dry and the ground's wet, I'll know you're doing it. The next day, it is. And Gideon's like, okay, I can take some little faith steps, God. I'm trusting you, God. I'm trying to trust you, God. I see you. You're speaking to me. Well, there's some good news and bad news in this, because the overall picture is that the Midianites had over 100,000 troops. Big old army. Well, Gideon has inspired 32,000 people to fight with him. That's great news. He's got somebody who's going to fight with him. He's seeing some resources come together. The bad news is that's not how God was going to win the victory. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, God, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work longer. I'm going to think more. I'm going to have a better plan. I'm going to strategize. God says, those things are fine to try, but don't put your faith in those things. Put your faith in me. So God takes away some of the resources. You're like, what? That doesn't make sense, God. I thought you were building up the resources to fill that gap, to make this happen. God says, that's how you'd fix it. God says, actually, I'm going to fix it my way. Well, my way is really the key part of the passage. So in chapter 7, the Lord said to Gideon, you got too many men. I can't deliver Midian in their hands, or Israel would boast against me. My own strength has saved me. Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 go back. You understand, the key part of this whole story, where it says, you would say your own strength has saved you, God says, that's what I want you to learn. It's not your 32,000. So say, hey, who's scared, go home? 22,000 go home. So now we're down to 10,000. God says, actually, it's still too many men. Gideon's like, what? Man, now my faith is crumbling, God. God says, no. You're just scared. But your faith, if it's in me, it's not crumbling. Let's walk through this. So what happened? They go down the river, and a little situation here where they decide to drink water this way, drink water this way. If you do plan A, you're going home. Plan B, you stay there. So verse 7 says, the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men, that's it, 300 men that lapped the water, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. Send them back from 32,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 300. Send them home. So Gideon, he sent the rest of the Israelites home, but he kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. Okay, so you understand, God is clarifying the situation. He said, you are not going to solve this on your own. If you're going to walk with me, then you're going to trust me. And if you trust me, we're going to make it. And Gideon's like, but it's like I'm facing something so big, God, I can't get past my fear. Okay, I equate that to maybe to facing a gang. Anybody in here ever been in a gang? I've never been in a gang. I've never really seen a gang up close. But I've tried to picture what they look like, so we got some pictures. Okay, so back in the day, man, you got a picture. I think that's like Tom Cruise looking all gang-like and stuff. These guys thinking, okay, a gang. Or maybe a little more modern day. You got like the mafia gang. You're like, man, okay, I don't want some mafia gang coming after me. Or Nehemiah, I know, man, you'd be all about this next gang. Because this next gang, you're like, man, what about that, man? Vader and his guys coming after me. And we laugh, but when we're facing this big old fear, we're facing the bills we can't cover, we're facing emotional margin we can't handle, saying, God, I can't handle this. Well, I want to give you a visual on this that helps you kind of lock this in. So I need some help in this. So let's see. Brandon, if you're coming up here, and let's see. Let me get Josh coming up here. I just need some guys. Let's see, over this way. Drew coming up here. I need a couple more. Let's see, who did I... And if you guys can walk around this side here and stop by that table and grab a weapon. Okay, grab a weapon. And let's see who else I was going to grab. Oh, yeah, Tim Thomas, definitely. He's definitely gang material. I like that. Bring him on up. And then, let's see. You guys can stand kind of like right here. I need one more. I'll go Tommy. Tommy Jones. Yeah, Tommy, come up here. You're being a gang. So you guys all grab a weapon and kind of cluster up right here like you're trying to be mean and imposing to me. And I'm just going to like back up a little bit. Okay. Now, on this side of things, let's see. Let me get Sean, Calvin, you guys come up here. Let's see. Tommy, Tran, come up here. I need your help. And let's see. Let me get Matt Curry and then Jackson over there in the back coming up here. And you guys come up here on this side, okay? And this is like the Dr. Seuss gang, I guess. I don't know. So you guys come up here. All right, so you guys kind of like all face us like you're ready to rumble. You got chains, you got wrenches and bats and stuff like that. And that's a pretty mean, ugly looking gang. And okay, so let's think about this now. We're laughing, but if I'm here and they're literally saying to me, we're about to beat the crap out of you, Pastor Matt. I'm like, okay, well, Sean, get in front of me. Okay? And yeah, I'm over here with my crew. So you guys kind of move up here a little bit, and I'm looking at this saying, maybe, okay? Like, maybe we can make it out, their gang versus this group of guys. That's Gideon. Big numbers. His team over here. He's like, maybe. Remember, but God said, actually, Tommy and Matt, you guys go ahead and take a seat back. And they're like, okay, well, now we're losing some of our strength. But he went, 32,000 down. It's like, okay. I'm like, oh, Calvin, you get in front of me then, man. You take the wrench before I take the wrench. And our numbers are getting leaner. And God said, no, that's actually still too many. So Calvin, Sean, you guys sit down. Thanks for your help. Okay, Jackson. And, you know, I look at this, I say, okay, how are you feeling right now? I'm scared. I'm scared too. And Gideon gets in a spot where he's like, God, really? Like all I get's like a little handful against this massive like wave of fear that's coming my way. And what God was doing in that moment, he's saying, hey, Matt, you and Jackson aren't going to make this happen. I mean, he's pretty quick and nimble. He can like go between his legs and grab his thing and grab the bat, and I can run. But we are not going to win this battle unless God does something phenomenal. Unless God does something literally miraculous. So, okay, why don't you guys take a seat, and you can go back and take a seat. Thank you. Let's have a hand for Jackson. Yes, my hero in this. Thank you. So, we get this visual in our mind, and we think about our situation. And you're like, oh, Pastor Matt, I mean, if you do our finances, you know that's how I feel about my finances. That's how I feel when I look at the bank account and it's like it's not working. Or you think about that and you're like, man, my emotions are just so tense right now. There's so much going on that I cannot handle one more thing going wrong, let alone figuring out how to solve this thing. I'm going to snap. Or you look at it and you say, man, I would love to change careers, but I'm so busy with this. How could I possibly go back to school? I could not do that. Man, there is no resource that can fill this gap and work it. And God says, I'm here. I'll help. Now you say, okay, well, Pastor Matt, I've heard that God won't put on me more than I can handle. Okay, who's heard that? Who's heard that? I hear it about once a week. And I listen, and then lovingly I say, that's not true. It's not true. Because God will allow you to have more than you can handle So you lean on him. And you say, oh, but it's biblical. It's in the Bible. No, actually, in the Bible, what the Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12, he's talking of Jesus here, he said, but Jesus said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power, literally, Jesus' power in our life. My power is made perfect in weakness. And then Paul finishes saying, therefore, I'll boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so Christ's power can rest on me. So it's like I'm over here with Jackson, and I'm like, God, you said you wouldn't give me more than I can handle. And God says, actually, I didn't say that. I said, Matt, in your weakness, I'll be made strong. And I said, Jackson, we feel strong. So with God's power, we can feel strong. That's totally different than us just kind of like manning up or womaning up, saying, okay, I'm just going to toughen up and do this. God says, that's not my plan. Because literally, if you could do that, and if me and Jackson could like and do all this ninja stuff and knock them down, you'd be guys like, man, you guys are incredible. You wouldn't say God's incredible. But if we did this thing, and what's going to happen next in Gideon's story, if it happened up here, you'd say, whoa, man, only God could do that. Let's see what happened there. Because to review, we went from 32,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 300. The odds are long. It's looking bad. Well, God speaking to Gideon says, if you're afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they're saying. Afterward, you'll be encouraged to attack the camp. So he, Gideon, and Purah, his servant, went down to the outposts of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. They're all over. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. Understand, Gideon's in a spot where he has doubts. Again, you're like, man, this is a common theme. It is a common theme. We're going to have doubts. God will encourage us, but we'll have doubts. God will do something, we'll rise up with it, then I'll have doubts. God comes close to Gideon. God promised to encourage Gideon. He said, Gideon, even though there are massive resources against you, massive fear that's coming up. He said, there are massive challenges against you. He said, go on down to the camp. And Gideon's like, what are you talking about? Me and my assistant, go down to the camp? Go down to the camp. He goes down to the camp. He's hiding out there right outside the little wall, and he's listening. Here's a couple guys talking. A couple guys on the other side are saying, man, I had a dream last night. It was so weird because in my dream, it was like some big destructive force came crashing through here and knocked us down and took us out. He said, man, this could be the God of Israel is going to do this. And the other guy's like, what? He said, yes, man, that's what I dreamed. I am scared. And Gideon's standing here, can't be seen by them, and he hears this. He's like, they're scared? They got over 100,000 people. We have 300 people. He said, God is up to something. So God will come close to you. He'll say, even though you're doubting, even though you're scared, even though you're facing massive challenges, Gideon, in that moment, he's not feeling like a mighty warrior. Say mighty. Mighty. Warrior. You think he's feeling like that right now? No, he's not. He's not feeling mighty. He's not feeling like a warrior, but God is whispering in his ear, saying, I've got you. In fact, I've got you right where I want you. Just follow me. Well, verse 16, dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. God made this plan. Literally, Gideon heard from God, makes this plan. He'd been walking with God. He'd been listening to God. God said, this isn't going to be fancy. This isn't going to be that creative. You just follow me obediently. Leave the results up to me. And Gideon's like, okay, we'll take the jars. We'll put the lanterns in, and we'll go down there. And here's what happened. When the 300 trumpets sounded, because they walked down there, they circled the camp. The 300 trumpets sounded. The Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. They're like, what? They broke the jars. The lights went up. The trumpets went up. There was only 300 of them. And over 100,000 men start going nuts. It was like this gang right here. Picture this. Me and Jackson are like, okay, what's the plan? I don't know, man. Put the jar in the thing and break it and just watch what happens. And these guys start hitting each other with wrenches. They start hitting each other with bats, wrapping chains around their necks. Before I know it, they're all dead. Amy and Jackson like, what happened? God did that. So when 300 people just follow God obediently, it is a miracle, and Gideon wins the battle. That's what happens. So the bottom line, when we encounter God, we could overcome any resource dilemma. So repeat after me. When we encounter God, when I encounter God, I can overcome any resource dilemma. You can. Not to praise you, not to lift you up, but for someone to say, my goodness, what did God just do in your life? Yep, that's what my God does. When my resources are, they're so short, when I don't figure any way I can make it, but I walk with God, and I trust God in that, and I follow him obediently, I can overcome any dilemma. So what does that look like for you? When you deal with your money, when you deal with your emotion, your time, you're saying, okay, I'm going to take that step and take a course and go over that career. I'm going to have that tough conversation I need to have, or I'm going to give, or I'm going to serve. I'm going to do something that's outside of my comfort zone that God's leading me to do, to see God do something awesome and amazing. We're going to see God do that if we walk in that kind of faith. All right, let's pray.